for that was a very personal testimony. Now we're going to go to a land use planner, a regional land use planner from Land of Sky. This should be a very different kind of overview. And
Thank you.
I'll do strange things over here.
The Land of Sky map. It's just that. Well, thanks for inviting me here today. I'm Linda Giltz. I'm a regional planner at Land of Sky Regional Council, and I've been here in Asheville for a little over 11 years. Here we're going. Okay, that gives you. That's our region that the Land of Sky Regional Council works in, and so a lot of my projects span that region. My work is a lot of my work is land use planning work, and some of it's offshoots from that, like greenway planning and transportation planning, and this project I'm going to talk to you today about. So, I've got a lot of interest in sustainable development and conservation and wise use of resources, and so I'm going to tell you about a project. One of the projects I'm working on is called Linking Lands and Communities in the Land of Sky region. And I don't know, you probably didn't pick up a list of a handout yet, but on our handout we've got a brief description of the project and also a big list of partners, which I'm not going to show up here right now because it's a little too difficult. But we're working with lots of different individuals and organizations in the region. A few of these folks sitting here at the table have been real active. A few people in the audience have been real active on the project, and it's a growing list of partners to develop this project. So, linking lands and communities, I think of it as it's about connecting the planning that we do for development with the planning that we do for conservation and preservation. Looking at it holistically, looking at it for the long term. And there's my next graphic. All right, thank you. I wanted to mention that we're using this approach called a green infrastructure approach, which some of you may know about and some of you may have never heard of before. But it combines a lot of scientific information, but also combines a lot of the community values that go with that information to develop a plan that's on the landscape level. We're looking at our 4-county region as our landscape level for conservation and development. And the term is important to me because people can relate to planning for water and sewer infrastructure, for road infrastructure. You think of those things as networks and systems, and they have to be that for them to work. And so we need to start thinking about planning for our conservation lands in the same kind of way. They need to be connected to each other so that we've got ecosystems that, that last and will be sustainable. So while we have these nice, beautiful, big swaths of parkland, which you can't see anymore, but, you know, with Pisgah National Forest, some of our big state parks, we really need also those river corridors and things that are going to connect those pieces to keep the habitat intact. The other thing that green infrastructure is often referred to as our life support system, because it's what provides the water that we drink, the air that we breathe, and the food that we eat. And it fits really nicely in with today's theme, food, farms, and forest, because those are some of the lands that make up our green infrastructure. What we're doing with this project is that we're kind of inventorying all the things that would make up that green infrastructure. We're looking at the lands that provide our water for us. We're looking at the lands that provide our food, our forest lands, our biodiversity for the wildlife that live in this area and the plants. And we're putting them together in a series of assessments. And what we are calling these are either assessments, that's the name that we had from the beginning of the project, but we're really kind of evolving to more of a suitability map. And I think if you go to the next graphic, that one, this is a preliminary rough draft of what we're looking at initially as a water assessment, identifying graphically, you know, where are the most important areas in our region that provide us water quality. So we're looking at the water as one assessment. We're looking at farms and forestry as another assessment. We're looking at the habitat and biodiversity of our region as another assessment. And We've completed drafts for water, and you can't really, I'm not expecting you to really understand this map that much right now. I just wanted you to get a visual of what it might look, what we're looking at putting together. But the dark blue are the most important, the highest quality streams that we have in the area. It kind of goes down to the red, which is our impervious areas, which are mostly the urban areas. So we've been working on water assessment. We've got assessments of the recreation lands and our cultural resources. We're currently working on our agriculture assessment for farms and forest land, and we're currently just beginning a wildlife habitat and biodiversity assessment. And what will happen is this group of folks that's been working with us on the project are kind of doing the thinking about this to get these initial maps done, and then we're going to take the maps out to a series of county level meetings to get input and feedback, comments from folks that know the land and know places, and so that we can get your values and ideas about those. We'll pull all that back together again and have a regional workshop in the fall where we'll actually design that network, as I was mentioning earlier, taking all this information into account and trying to see what kind of trade-offs need to be made, but coming up with something in the end that looks like a network. And then following that, we'll be applying tools to the network so that we've got a toolbox that goes along with the set of maps that we develop, so that if you want to do a conservation reason on your land, or you want to know how to preserve farmland, how to preserve forests, how to have the best water quality when you're doing your development, all those kinds of things. We'll have tools that are briefly explained and point you to resources, but that also tie into places on the map. So am I out of time, or can I do 2 more minutes?
Do 2 more minutes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to hit really briefly on some of the whys, and I think Lee is going to jump off and do some more of that. But just so you know, we know we're in a region that's growing, and even though we've got we got an economic slump right now, we're probably going to keep growing. We've got about 380,000 people in our 4-county region right now, and it's expected to be about 500,000 in 2030. And some of the biggest problems is the pattern of growth that we're having here and the fragmentation that's happening. This shows a picture of our mountain ridge and steep slope development, but it's happening on the flatter landscapes as well, and that's one of the issues with farmland. Maybe you could switch to the next one. And I'm not going to go into lots of details on this, but in 1950, half of our land was in agriculture. And as of the latest census, 16% of our land is in agriculture. So we've had a lot of loss of farmland over these past 57 years. But it's very important to our economy, and it's the #1 industry in North Carolina. It provides 20% of the jobs and the revenue in our state. So it is something that's important for us to have food and everything on our table, but also to provide jobs for folks in the region. And then lastly, I'll just quickly go to that one. Yeah. So this just kind of encapsulates what we're trying to do with this green infrastructure plan, is identify what areas are most suitable for different types of development and also for different types of conservation and preservation, and providing tools. Where does it make sense to have the infrastructure, because the infrastructure really does drive development. And then try to put in context what are the priorities then for preservation and conservation and ways to do that. So I guess that's probably a good 5 minute.
Thank you.